Hi everybody, it's Julie here with a video tutorial for you on how to create these stunning smoky faux watercolored backgrounds. I had actually seen Wendy Vecchi use her archival reinkers to create these types of effects, and I was just fascinated by it and I wanted to try it. And I really got carried away. I could sit there and do this just all day long. It's so much fun. Now please see the supply list down below in the video description to gather together everything you're going to need. And I started by taking 3 colors of archival reinker that I knew would work together. I grabbed the aquamarine, olive, and saffron, and I'm just going to start with 2 colors first. And one thing I did was use a dropper tool by Studio Calico to grab some rubbing alcohol out of a big bottle that I had handy right there. And I did get kind of heavy-handed with the rubbing alcohol. I think I would have gotten even better results if I had not been quite so heavy-handed with the rubbing alcohol. But this is my first time trying it out, so I was just going to experiment. And I cut down all my stamping specialty paper by Ranger into small pieces so I could kind of experiment without, wasting a huge sheet of paper all at one time. And I'm using my tweezers there to lift it up out of the solution. I just dropped it down face first, and then I'm using my heat gun to push the color around. You can also tilt it and move it around and let it air dry, but in order to work quickly and add more if I wanted to, I found that it helped to really speed it up with the heat gun. And I put it in this shoebox lid that I had lined with foil, and that was just to keep the ink from getting all over inside the shoebox lid, because I use this box for heat embossing too. But as you can see, I'm using the heat gun to kind of push the ink around. I added some extra drops of rubbing alcohol to see what would happen, and it actually will reactivate the ink so you can continue manipulating it. So here I am just adding some more color. This one is the saffron, and then again more rubbing alcohol. And like I said, I got a little too heavy-handed with it, so the next time I try this, I'm actually going to try to use less rubbing alcohol. But it really does not take much archival ink at all. It's very concentrated, so you really only need a little drop. And then here we go. I'm just going to start pushing it around. And you can see it creates this really cool, almost smoky effect. And it dries very smooth into this particular paper surface. Now, I don't know, I guess you could try this on other papers, but this paper really handles that amount of fluid on it very well, and it doesn't buckle a lot. So I would really recommend that, at least for your first trial, that you start with this paper before trying it with other papers. That way you'll have great success right out the gate with it. So I didn't have any other colors of archival reinkered. I was really regretting the fact that I didn't buy more colors, so I just grabbed my Copic reinkers just to see what would happen if I added this to the mix. So again, I'm just going to add a few more drops of rubbing alcohol and kind of swirl it around there with my tool. I didn't even stop to clean my tool off, just decided to go ahead and keep mixing it and seeing what would happen. So there we go. We've got some color on there, stuck it into my lid there so I could continue heating it and manipulating it really quickly. And I was just really astonished at how pretty the two kind of blended together really well, and continued heating it, and then grabbed my dropper tool and added more rubbing alcohol to the paper surface to kind of get it to dilute and move around. And there you can see the pattern is starting to become different. And then I just started scooping it up with my little palette knife there. I was like, oh, I want some more green here. And instead of plopping it down into the puddle there, I just decided to use that palette knife to just scoop the color up as much as I could and plop it down onto that paper. I'm trying to make sure I don't drop that lid down there into my little puddles there, because I'm working in a pretty tight spot. And then I just started kind of two-fisting it, where I had my heat gun in one hand and the dropper tool in the other. I just started adding alcohol and heating, and adding more alcohol and heating, and adding more ink with the palette knife, and just continuing to experiment by adding more color and more layers. And I found that if you let it dry in between adding more color, you would end up with a little less muddying. So if you really want to preserve that color intensity and not get over muddying occurring, then you do want to heat in between each layer of color that you add. And then I took a straw. I was like, hey, what happens if I do this? So I took a straw and blew on it and pushed it around, and then continued to heat it and play with it and tilt it. And it just was a lot of fun to just kind of experiment and see what would happen. And normally I don't do this kind of thing because I hate to get my fingers all stained with ink, but I also had some hand sanitizer available so that I could quickly clean my hands off if I got, you know, a little too wild and crazy. So now I'm going to add a little bit of, I think this is like a honey or golden yellow, just to kind of pull in that color. And like I said, you just want to experiment with this a little bit and don't overmix or you're going to end up with mud. Plop that down in there just to get the first initial application of color on there. And I have to really, like, when it starts dripping and running like that, I had to really take good care that I didn't panic over it, because I could manipulate it. It was going to continue blending because of the alcohol, and then I could come back in even after I'd heated it and add more alcohol. And there you can see it's starting to repel and push the color out. And I was like, oh man, that is so cool. So you can create these polished stone effects. And I'm sure that many of you have probably already played with this, but this was new for me, and I'm just kind of experimenting and inviting you along for the ride. Because I don't normally do this kind of thing, and I just really had a lot of fun exploring it, and I can really see myself making a lot more of these, and I was really loath to do anything with them. I thought they were just stunning, all finished and by themselves, and I could see them just kind of created in a grid fashion and framed. But here you can see all the different results that I got with the different pieces that I worked with. And one thing I did notice was that if I just used strictly archival ink, it created a really smooth effect. But when I added the Copic refills to the mix, I ended up getting some really shiny spots that had a little bit of texture to them. So they weren't as smooth. They were very different. It was hard to pick this up with the camera, but overall I was really pleased with it. I want to get more colors of archival so I can keep playing with this technique and getting that smoky watercolored effect. I think it was smokier with the archival than it was with the Copics. The Copics kind of got more marbled, and the archival stayed kind of smoky. And you can see more photos on our blog, and please give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.